Hey, man, what up, folks? It's time for some truth and honesty here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast after the first preseason game. We're going to talk about Urban Meyer, James Robinson, and just take a look ahead at the long and short-term prospects of this team. We'll do that in just a second here on the Monday edition of Locked On Jaguars.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, good day. What is going on, man? This is your man Tony Wiggins here with the Locked On Jaguars podcast on a Monday. Let's just run through it, man. Let's just talk about exactly what we're going to get into today. I have to first let you know that today's show, as always, you need to check out a live fantasy show. What is the live fantasy show? Have fantasy football questions you need answered before your draft, and they're coming up. Mine is coming up on the 27th or the 28th. Don't miss Locked On Fantasy Live on Wednesday, August 18th at 9 p.m. Eastern, streaming on the Locked On NFL YouTube page. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Our stable of fantasy experts will answer your questions live or submit them ahead of time to Locked On Network on Twitter. All right, man, we got a lot to roll into today. So what I'm going to get into is Urban Meyer saying that he wants to play faster. And that's the first thing that really caught my attention after the first preseason game, a loss to Cleveland, where really the Jaguars were pretty much dominated actually by the Cleveland second team defense. They weren't able to really get anything done with their starters, or I was really, really disappointed in the line of scrimmage, but we'll get into that. But he wants to play faster, and I want to know who he's really aiming that comment towards, because the players, sure, they could get in and out of the huddle quicker, but also I think that's a coaching thing. And I think he was sort of talking to offense coordinator Darrell Bevell and maybe our quarterback coach Brian Schottenheimer about how he wants to look. He made a very broad statement about, I don't want to look like that. I don't want to look like a slow and plodding team. And he talked a lot about being exciting and fast and playing with speed. And that didn't happen the other night. So we'll get into that a little bit. James Robinson made news, as you can probably tell, right? At this point, he made the top 100. He is number 100 on the top 100 players list of the NFL. We'll talk about that. And we'll also talk about the fact that if he's number 100, maybe the only other player that has a chance to crack the top 100 is Myles Jack for the Jaguars, and how the Jaguars, if they're ever going to really, really be any good, they need to change that over a period of time. And then the third segment, we'll give a long and short-term view of what's ahead for this team. The cuts are coming this week, and then that's the micro look. The macro look will be very important too, because maybe something you saw the other night or didn't see the other night actually changed your mind about not whether it's going to work. You can't draw that conclusion. Obviously, I still have faith in Urban, but how long is it going to take? Because the NFL is a little bit different than college. So let's just get into it. The first segment here, talking about the speed. I totally agree with Urban when you look at the fact that the team actually didn't live up to the billing. And you think about him in college, when he coached at Ohio State and when he coached at FSU, his teams were very, very fast. A lot of that has to do with the fact that he had a bunch of five-star recruits. It's equivalent to having a bunch of first-round picks on your team, right? The difference in speed in the NFL is going to be very, very small compared to college. It depends what you lead with. So I want you guys to think about this. When is the last time someone came into the NFL, was super innovative with some sort of new gimmick or twist on this tried and true game, and they actually won anything? Mike Martz, maybe. Andy Reid won this year, but Andy Reid isn't new to this. Andy Reid is the quarterback whisperer the running back whisperer, and the screen king. And he always has great tight ends. He's been doing that for 20-something years. That's nothing new. Sean McVay, yeah, but they haven't won anything with that. So when is the last time you've seen someone sort of reinvent the wheel in the NFL? Doesn't happen. You know why it doesn't happen? For a reason. It's because the NFL is where the best coaches are. Now, I know we fall in love with college coaches, and I think Urban Meyer is an outlier where he was a college coach who probably is one of those guys who's the best pure football coaches in the world. And that's why I think he's going to be ultimately successful in Jacksonville, because I really do think Urban is one of those difference makers, just like Jimmy Johnson, just like Pete Carroll. I think Nick Saban's the same way. But because they've adapted to so many college principles, I think people believe that college coaches were ahead of NFL coaches, and I never thought that. I believe they adopted to so many college principles because coaches are in the line of fire. They have to win or they'll get fired, right? Unless you're Jacksonville's coach, you can hang around for 4 or 5 years losing, but that's in the past. But I do believe coaches have been on the hot seat to learn how to win, and therefore they have to get more out of their draft picks quicker. So I think that coaches, what they did was they went and learned a lot of the things from the college game. So they knew what to teach the guys, and they knew what the guys who were coming into the NFL were already versed at, so they could get production out of them, because there's always pressure. You pick a guy high and the fans go crazy, and all of a sudden everybody wants to see that guy do something. Case in point, one of the things that Urban said the other night, he talked about his 2 first-round rookies. He said that Trevor was fine. You know, there's some things. Trevor was, 6 out of 9 for 71 yards. Not bad statistically, but Urban probably wanted to see him get the ball out quicker, and I think he did mention that. And then something else Urban Meyer said. He said, I want to see more out of ETN. I wish I would have seen more out of ETN. So who was he talking to? Was he talking to the fans? Was he talking to the players? I mean, ETN can't call his own plays, right? But did the guys not have a sense of urgency coming out of the huddle? What was the problem? Well, I think part of it is, and part of it has to be placed on Urban as a responsibility. Too much of this training camp, in my opinion, and I understand why he did it, and he's way more versed at this than me. I'm not tripping on that. What I'm saying is too much of this training camp looked like guys auditioning for jobs. And I know most of you guys think that that's what training camp is supposed to be, and you're probably right. But at some point, you're going to have to start zeroing in on the guys that you know that's going to help you, and they have to start getting most of the reps. Backup quarterbacks and backup players don't get a lot of the reps when it's time to prepare. And the only way you're going to get an identity, whether it's about playing with tempo, playing with speed, is the guys that who you know are going to play, and the guys that you're going to depend on, they have to start getting out there, and they have to start eating up most of the reps in practice, because you got about 3 weeks before you're going to play a game. So whatever you want to look like, and remember, this isn't just me talking. Urban Meyer said this is not a 4-year plan. This is not, he said this is a 1-year plan because it's not fair to the players. So they're trying to win games right now, right? So the bottom line is hold your coach to his words. Don't worry about my opinion of it. I think it's time for the auditions to be over. Where Urban said that to having these competitions in practice takes the subjectivity out of it. You can't. That's almost an oxymoron. Subjectivity isn't out of it, because when you're picking your own guys and you're using resources and first-round picks and free agency money on people, you're pretty much saying that you kind of know who your top guys are already. And because if you're wrong about them, then that means that the job you were doing as the personnel guy doesn't work. You can't go out and sign guys in free agency and pick guys high and then those guys not play. So some of the subjectivity is gone when you make those selections in the first place. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about James Robinson, some good news. It's not all bad news here today. We're going to talk about James Robinson making the top 100 list in the National Football League, and we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars on a Monday. after I tell you guys about betonline.ag. Betonline.ag is your number one source, and it's the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action at BetOnline. Get all the latest news, odds, and info for all your sporting needs, including Major League Baseball, UFC, MMA, and boxing right now. The NFL is on their way, so guess what? You better get ready. And before the next pitch or the next bell, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news and sign up bonuses and contest information. Don't just sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for their runs to the playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device today to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use the promo code Locked On. That's right. It's betonline.ag. Head on over today and sign up and get that 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. James Robinson made some news. He's number 100 on the top 100 list, and good for him. That's one of the best stories that we've had in the organization for a minute. You talk about a quiet, unassuming guy that just keeps his head down. Running back James Robinson, and a lot of people thought, okay, Urban's going to come in, he's going to get his own guy, and they drafted ETN, and they're going to run off James Robinson. No, you ain't running off James Robinson. If you watch him work, if you watch the practices, a quintessential young professional, and the kind of guy that coaches absolutely love to have around. So there's no way that this team isn't going to have James Robinson, not only as a part of the team, but to be a featured member of the team. He's a really, really good player. I love featuring him as much as I can. He doesn't say much, but I really love I think if you have a guy like James Robinson as your representative for this team, you'll be fine for a very, very long time. I wonder, though, with him being at 100, who else could possibly make it? No one offensively, unless the NFL top 100 is going to do something that they don't normally do, and that is acknowledge offensive linemen or special teams guys, a kicker or a punter. But I don't think there's anybody else that's going to be above him in the top 100 offensively. The only guy that I think has a chance defensively is Myles Jack at this point. The Jaguars have some nice young players, right? And I tweeted something out the other day about C.J. Henderson, that he was their most talented and gifted cornerback or DB. And I stand by that. And I'm sure that if you polled 100 NFL scouts, they would say the same thing. And a lot of people got confused with what I meant about talent. And they started pointing out Shaq Griffin. And I like Shaq Griffin. I'm a little bit I used to get accused of being biased towards Jalen Ramsey because everyone knows that I'm a Florida State fan, right? And I told people, and I will tell you until the day I die, that who I root for in college has absolutely zero to do with my opinion of them in the NFL. So everyone knows that I'm not a particular fan of the Florida Gators because I love Florida State. So when I say something good about C.J. Henderson, I get all of these people, most of them, some of the same people that just want to disagree. And it's amazing to me that why am I not accused of being biased when it comes to that? And everybody brings up Shaq Griffin, and it almost made it seem like I don't like Shaq Griffin, which could be further from the truth, because two family members of mine, they're close family members. They're not actual blood relatives. Well, three, actually. They played in the same defensive backfield as Shaq at UCF. They're still really good friends with him today. And in fact, Shaq's barber is I mentored his barber. And I'm really good. You know, he's like one of my little brothers. So why would I not be biased towards him if I could? It's because I'm not biased at all when it comes to this job I do. C.J. Henderson is the most talented, including Shaq Griffin. I think if the Jaguars would tell you the same thing. It doesn't mean that he's more dependable. And I think that's where a lot of people get. It doesn't mean he's more solid in terms of technique. It doesn't mean that he's more productive. I said he's more talented. If you took their names off their jerseys and you dropped 20 football coaches into that practice, and they watch practice for a week, they would probably determine to you that they take Shaq Griffin every day of the week over C.J. Henderson because of his experience, of his effort, and he's not a non-talented player. Of course he is. He's talented. But there were people coming at me like he's Jalen Ramsey, Tre'Davious White, or Stephon Gilmore, and I don't think anyone in the league thinks that. In fact, the contract that he signed indicates that he's not that. So I don't know why I got so much vitriol from people by saying C.J. Henderson is talented. Let me tell you what those 100 coaches would do if they went to a practice and those guys' names weren't on the back of their jersey. They would know in 10 minutes that C.J. Henderson was the most talented defensive back. That's the difference between talent and whether or not a guy's a better fit or a guy's a better player. And I think a lot of times you guys get caught up in the charisma a guy may have when they do interviews, where one guy is very engaging and he's a leader, and the other guy, and I think those things are good qualities too, and those things are talents in themselves. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about physical gifts. I'm talking about a guy in C.J. Henderson, while he might not do it all the time, can do things that other guys on that team couldn't do if they worked 18 hours a day in the gym. That's what talent is. So you can get angry at me, you can get upset, and you can not understand my point. But people that have been around this game really, really do get that point. There's a reason why that kid was a top 10 pick in the draft. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to pan out. It doesn't mean he's going to be a better player than anyone on this team. But you should be rooting for him to be cornerback 1. Because I like Shaq Griffin, and you should too. But if Shaq Griffin is number 2, if he's cornerback 2 on your team, he's good. If he's your Patrick Surtain to the Sam Madison, he's good. You know what I mean? That means the team is good. So I just don't get it sometimes when fans get upset when you make a point and you say, hey, C.J. Henderson is the most talented player on the team, the most talented DB. Now he just has to live up to it. That's what you're angry at. You're not angry that the kid isn't talented. You're angry that he has all of that talent and he just seems like it's going to take this extra motivation to get him to play. So now that we've cleared that up, the reason why I said that is because at some point, if the Jaguars are going to be good, they have to have more than James Robinson in the top 100. If the Jaguars at some point going to be what Urban Meyer wants them to be, and I know a lot of people out there go, well, we just want a bunch of guys who are team players, and we just want a bunch of guys who all want to be there and all want to play. Yeah, that's all good and fine. Ask Urban what he wants. Urban wants that too, but what he also wants is superior talent and superior athletes. Go back and look at his recruiting classes at Florida State and Ohio State. Go back and look at what he talks about athletic profile, about guys that can run and jump and have speed. He wants superior athletes. So don't get mad at the messenger, because most of the time the messenger agrees with your coach. And I'm just trying to explain it to you. All right, man, coming up in segment 3, we're going to talk about a look ahead, short-term and long-term, what's going on this week. How does this team learn from what happened the other night and transition that into playing better against the Saints? And then a broader look at the roster and what may happen as we head towards the regular season. We'll do that in just a second here on the Monday edition of Locked On Jaguars. After I tell you about Built Bar, man, it is absolutely delicious. Built Bar they're just tremendous. And I'm going to tell you, they got 9 great flavors, and it's a protein bar. Now, you think it's a candy bar. I still have to hit myself over the head and realize it's not a candy bar. It's actually a protein bar that's packed with protein, that's low in calories, low in sugar, and low in carbs. Because it's covered with 100% chocolate, it's absolutely delicious. And my favorite Built Bar, of course, is the salted caramel. I love that contrast between that salt and that caramel. It just does something for me. But you can find your favorite flavor, too, if you go to BuiltBar.com and enter the promo code LOCKED15. You're going to get 15% off of your first order of Built Bar. That's right. Built Bar at BuiltBar.com. LOCKED15 is the promo code. I'm telling you, my backup flavor is raspberry. Now, you really have to, you can get an assorted box. You can get one flavor. Just go on Built Bar or go to @bar_built on Twitter and keep up with everything that's going on with Built Bars. I'm telling you, you will not be angry that you did this. Built Bar is fantastic. I enjoy them every day, and you can do the same thing at BuiltBar.com. Remember to use the promo code LOCKED15. Also, want to tell you about RockAuto.com. RockAuto.com is the quintessential place for you to go to get your auto parts and accessories for any make or model of vehicle that you may have. Now, I don't know about you, but I love saving 30, 40, and sometimes even 50% on my auto parts. And more importantly, I love to know that the auto parts that I'm getting are safe and they're the right ones and they're the correct ones. And the process to go along about getting them is easy when you have a laptop or a mobile device. It's better than going to a chain store, standing there answering a bunch of questions that you just don't know the answer to. RockAuto.com will fix all of that. Now, when you go on RockAuto.com, there's a little box that's going to ask you, how did you hear about us? In that box, I want you to say Locked On in one word so that they know we sent you. RockAuto.com is a family-owned business, been in business for over 2 decades, satisfied customers all around the country, and you can be one as well. So visit rockauto.com for all of your parts and accessories and save you some money and some hassle. All right, man, rolling along here on a Monday, getting you guys ready for what's to come by taking a quick look back at what was. It was a little disappointing this weekend. The barbecue that I've talked about that sort of lasted for 7 months around here. I think everyone was expecting a little more flavor in the meat, once we took the stuff off the grill. But and that's not literal, by the way. That's just a figure of speech. But it wasn't. It wasn't. The offense kind of plodded along, was slow. Urban Meyer was asked about his first experience as an NFL coach. He says it was fine until he looked up at halftime and he saw that he only had 85 yards of offense. I think Trevor Lawrence should be the quarterback, and that's not a surprise to anyone. But more importantly, he should be the quarterback because of the amount of reps that the starter gets as you head into the season. Because this team needs an identity offensively, and I think that's one of the things that they were struggling with. The offensive line going against the backups of the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland didn't start anybody on either side of the ball. And they went up and down the field. The defense did look good against the run. They couldn't get off the field on third down, but the offense, they just had some problems with protection and some problems with some things up front. And then I did not see the wide receivers getting a ton of separation. So that's a little bit disheartening because the Cleveland had their backups. You imagine if Odell and Landry and Chubb and Hunt and Baker Mayfield and Myles Garrett and all of those guys and Denzel Ward and Delpit and Johnson, and if they had all of those guys on the field, that Jacksonville probably would have been looking real bad. So I know this is the first preseason game. I know that it's early. They still have a lot of young players, but I think as fans, you need to start being a little bit more angry. You have to get out of this being patient. I saw people do this with Gene Smith. I saw people do this with the last regime, with Dave Caldwell, and now they're doing it now. There's nothing wrong with you not being patient because your coach isn't patient. Urban Meyer is not satisfied. He's not happy. He was pissed. He's not patient. Why should you be so patient if he's not being patient? It just doesn't make a ton of sense to me that you'd be that patient with a guy who's not patient. I'm being serious here. He's not patient. Why are the fans so understanding? And it doesn't mean that you have to draw a conclusion that it's all screwed up. And it also doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. But come on, man, that's the only way this team you have to have an expectation that they're going to improve and be better. Remember, it's the best of everything, right? Strength of performance, speed. There's nothing wrong with you looking at what you saw and saying what you saw and saying what you didn't see. That's not being a Debbie Downer. That's not being delusional. In fact, that's being honest. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you reporting what you see. There's nothing wrong with you admitting that what you see. If your offensive line can't block, they can't block. Don't fool yourself. and don't shovel crap on yourself and just admit it. That's what he's doing. He's not accepting this. Trust me, this week at practice, he's going to beat down on those dudes. He's going to let them know. So moving forward and moving ahead, I'm going to warn you. The NFL isn't easy. It is not easy. You can have all the want to you want to, if you will, and you could still fail. It is a game of demonstrated performance, which is why when you saw what you saw the other night, you should have been upset. Because the only way they're ever going to do it when it really counts is they have to do it when it doesn't count first. Okay? I got folks tweeting me, telling me stuff like, well, even though it was our ones versus twos, there ain't a big difference in ones versus twos in the NFL. Are you kidding me? Where did you hear that at? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. There's a distinct difference. There should be between an entire. Now, I'm not talking about if one guy gets hurt and you plug another guy in. I'm talking about an entire unit, 11 on 11. There should be a distinct difference between number ones and number twos in the NFL. I've never heard Teller that. I know that sounds like an old man statement, but I've never heard Teller that in all of my life. The other thing is folks are saying 6 wins. That's fine. Your coach isn't thinking that way, though. Those players aren't thinking 6 wins. That's not what they're trying to get to. They're trying to win a division. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just built a little different, and maybe I just think a little differently, but I shoot for the moon. I don't shoot for mediocrity. You won't get mediocrity either when you go to Locked On Bets, the Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast, brought to you by betonline.ag, wherever you get your podcast. I'll be here every day, man, here. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube page. Also, tell your friends. Also, wherever you get podcasts on the Odyssey app or wherever else you get podcasts, make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Jaguars podcast. My thing is, I always tell you the same thing. Regardless, we still brothers. Let's take care of each other. And I'll see you tomorrow, the next day, here on another edition of Locked On Jaguars. Man,